From the land management perspective, what is really key is we are about correct management of the species. That is making sure there is a sustainable number on the ground. We are not trying to eradicate, we are not trying to decimate, we are there to encourage, but keep under control.
Get up.
We are actively trying to improve genetics, improve the weights of the animals, breeding success rates, but what's really important for the land is that we're cutting the pressure on the ecosystems for the flora and fauna. So you are easing the browse levels, you are stopping the sort of rarer flowers they might like to nibble off, you are trying to ease pressure and all of that. Agricultural and forestry, you're trying to prevent forestry damage, you're trying to prevent agricultural damage. See, we cannot stop the growth of deer in this country. What we can try and do as a nation is find the balance. There is that battle of, balance in this country of correct management for the deer, correct management for the land. My name is Warren Broad. I am a full-time deer manager based in Gloucestershire. The accent gives it away usually. I travelled the world briefly and around our country to look at the other way and areas, how they manage their deer, different concepts and ideas, and I think it's 13 years later or 11 years later I returned back to Gloucester, and that's where we are now. So I'm now the head of operations and deer manager for the company that's called DeerBox, which is the brainchild of Mike Robinson and Ben Heath. We manage approximately 40,000 acres of land. Last season we processed 2,500 head of animals, and this year we're hoping to double that number. We run sporting syndicates alongside it to try and give opportunity to recreational stalkers that don't necessarily have access to land that easy. We are now going into our 4th year. We have won the Best Small Game Retailer of the Award 3 years in a row. I think Mike was awarded a Conservation or Sustainability Award over at the Belgian Game Fair for work we carry out. And we are 110% of the UK market and very pro UK market and growth in the UK for correct management and venison supply and demand, I suppose. So it's the 31st of July. It's been 32 degrees, hottest day of the year so far. It is the start of the fallow season in the morning, which for us is key for our management. They are a herding species. They're pretty costly to the environment if they're not kept in check. So our focus as of tomorrow morning really turns to fallow. So this evening, we're going to have a look. We've got 1 or 2 roebucks left to try and thin out before we've met our quota, essentially. We're going to see what we can see this evening. My introduction to shooting was from air guns. I think I'm from a shooting family, but my father is a keen shotgun shot. He's never been a huge rifle shot, but he did used to take sort of annual trips to Scotland on the west coast, stag stalking. Where I'm actually from in Gloucestershire, on the banks of the River Severn, there aren't deer. We have no woodland. So seeing deer for me was like really exciting. And that was, 12, 13 years old. At 30 years old now, I still get just as excited about seeing deer in the fields. My day-to-day role varies massively. We have 2 sides to our company. Obviously our deer management side, which is all about land management and managing the deer and the ecosystems. And then we have our venison production side, which is very much pro the UK market and ensuring sort of education and getting venison into people's homes, into restaurants. So there's 2 sort of very different sides that link together. And the time of year varies massively on what I'm doing. Summertime is quieter time for us. We have roe and muntjac to sort of manage, and winter time is when we're sort of heavy in land management with the herding species like fallow deer, particularly in this area. And what we're trying to promote with our management is not just the right management of the animals, but it's the right management, more importantly, for the land that they're on in the ecosystems. A lot of the issue we see is that the government are very pro deer management at the minute. They understand, I think this is the highest number of deer we've ever had on record. I think the last estimation was 2.3 or 2.5 million. That's a staggering amount of deer for a little island, 6 different species. Particularly in England, the land is very split up. There's a lot more private management, private grounds than there is, government controlled grounds, public forests, that sort of thing. Any correct deer management plan will have trophies involved. That's part of it. You have to remove mature males, but that shouldn't be the focus. The focus should be finding the balance. That is, focusing on the females, focusing on the poor quality genetics, and ensuring the land has got a sustainable number of deer on it for the acreage that it can cope. But we obviously have these pockets where not everyone's on the same agenda. So you get correctly or well managed, not necessarily correctly well managed lands, and then you get poor management of land. And that's where I think the government needs to pay a little bit more attention, and their focus needs to be turned to, if they want correct management throughout our country, they've got to look at growing the market and the value of venison. There is a lot of work involved for stalkers, particularly if it's not full-time profession, it's recreational. November, December, January, February, horrible weather. It's a lot of work involved for £1.50 to £2 a kilo. That price is never going to increase if the market, our UK market, is not built up. Supply and demand. If the government can help assist and create a bigger market for UK venison, they will see an increase in correct management and sustainable management through the country, because there's more willing for people to go out and do it, and they know that there's somewhere for their venison to go.
It's the 1st of August, it's the start of our busy season. It's fallow deer season. It's herding deer species, the male, fallow, seeker, red. We're in fallow area here. These are our problematic animal. We've taken a nice young pricket this morning to start. That's initially what we're looking for. We're looking to remove the younger, poor males and leave our maturing males. Now, obviously, once we've harvested this animal, what's important for us, particularly me, is in this warm weather, as you can see, there's a lot of flies around. We need to get this animal open and chilled as quickly as possible, help keep the quality of the venison. Once that animal's deceased, it's really important to start treating it like a food source, because that's what you're producing. And if you want to produce the best quality food, you've got to take care of this. So it's the start of October, early October. It's been excessively wet. It's still quite mild for October, and we're just on the cusp of our fallow rut here on the south of England. Now, the idea of this morning's stalk is mainly a sort of a bit of a recon, a recce of our fallow rutting stands, just to see if things have started kicking off, see sort of where some of our bucks have moved to, who's taken up residence where. But obviously, we don't come without a rifle. We're still on the lookout for some poorer bucks, prickets, to harvest. And if we can find a few bucks and see how they're getting on, see if it's started, look at the quality, and remove some of the poorer stuff, then it's a good morning to be out. Buck in there, big buck in here. Don't know if you can see there, look. Didn't actually manage to get a look at his headgear, but you could see a body, you could see the silhouette of him in the coppice there. So it's not a very obvious bit. Hopefully we'll be able to poke more along the way. we've got all this really high bracken, and you come to a piece on the edge of a track like this bracken here is really flattened down, and you can see it's all been broken in an odd manner. And it's where the mature bucks, they sort of mark their territories out. And they have certain areas, certain trees that they thrash their antlers through, scratch the ground up, rub the trees, break the branches, just scent markings, just a territory thing. But it sort of happens on the build up to the rut and through the rut, and they patrol their area. So it's pretty dense cover, so you like to think if we can't potentially see them in the dense cover, we might hopefully catch them sort of marking their territory on the way round.
The benefits for venison are huge. And there's no other way to describe it other than people need to be educated on why venison is good to eat, why you should be eating venison to support the lands and the sustainability and almost a green movement behind it. I understand from the outside, if you have no understanding of deer management or very little, you would see what I do with rifles and animals on a day-to-day, and a lot of people would be probably grotesquely upset by what we do. I get it. It's a sensitive subject, and most deer managers will understand it's a sensitive subject. But at the same time, they've got to accept where it comes from and how it's done. This animal's had a great life. It's not been in a farm. It's not been in a pen. It's done as it pleases. And when the day finally comes, it doesn't know about it anyway.
So there's a pretty good example of an angry buck. So this is scent marking, territory marking at its finest, which again, they only seem to do this sort of year. But this one's obviously got fairly rolled up, and even you can see where he's been standing up and breaking the branches with the tips of his antlers. The branches are dirty, and they are probably, I don't know, maybe 8 foot tall. So it gives you an idea when they stand up on their hind legs, how high they can thrash. And then he's pawed away and scraped away at the ground so much he's almost created a hole.
If I'm buying meats, I want to know that animal's had a good life and not known what's going on. So, you know, the venison, you know, it's stress-free venison, it's wild, it's sustainable, it's great for your health, it's great for the environment.
That's what we're here for, people. A nice mature fallow buck. Egg marking his territory.
You won't find anyone more passionate, any people more passionate about deer other than those that manage them themselves. We are, particularly speaking of myself, it's obsessive of how much we care for deer, and we admire every single one. And that's the thing, you know, 30 years old, I still get excited about seeing a deer in a field like I've never seen a deer. And I see them every day, you know, so it is sort of like an earthly connection to what you do. You're working in the countryside, you're sort of entwined in the countryside, and there is a bit of a connection to the woods, to your lands, to the animals, and you do get very protective and very passionate about it. And I think that reflects in the product then, how you produce and how you carry out your line of work as well. So what I would ask any deer stalker in the UK is, as a leaving thought, I suppose, if you're managing land, ask yourself, am I doing this responsibly, ethically, in line for the deer and the land you've taken on? That's an obligation to take land on. If you're going to do it, am I doing this properly? Am I doing this to benefit myself or the environment? Because it should be the environment and the deer, not for yourself.